Welcome to Storytime. I'm Stephen Human, and we are reading The Intergalactic Audacity of Becky Blueshift, Book 1. And we are on episode number 14, Return of the King. If you have missed any of the previous episodes, feel free to go to YouTube or just here on social media. They're all here. Gather the kids around, let's have some fun, and continue with Becky's adventures. So here we go. Episode 14, Return of the King. "We can't leave the pirates here," Edison said between bites of tough lizard meat. "They'll take over. If the people were willing to follow Monarch, Nostrellis won't have any problem conquering them, and he'll be worse than their old rulers for sure." Becky sat back in her chair and looked around the throne room. Several guards stood watch while she, Edison, and Ben ate roasted reptile with purple vegetables that looked like oversized carrots. Platters sat on the floor next to what remained of the shattered table. The meal, while not particularly flavorful, filled their stomachs with gratitude. After a few hours' sleep and now a passable meal, all three of them felt much better about life and adventure. "Well, I'm not going to stay behind and be their queen or something," Becky said. She munched on one of the purple tubers contentedly. "I'll be their king," Ben offered with a grin. "I'd have them build me a giant statue of myself. And then we could blow it up. Oh, and then we could rebuild it again. And I could blow it up again." He trailed off, a faraway look in his eyes. "Are we really responsible for them now?" Becky asked. "It's not like they're kids. They should be able to take care of themselves. I mean, if our parents were here 20 years ago, like everyone says, it's not like they stayed to rule over the people and wipe their noses for them." Edison took another bite and followed it up with a drink of sour green liquid that smelled like unripe fruit. "Who knows what the civilization was like back then? I just feel like we have a responsibility to them now, that's all." "We have a responsibility to our parents," Becky countered. "Why don't you have Johnny Dakota be their king? You shouted his name enough times during the battle with Nostrellis." I got carried away, that's all," Edison said, brown cheeks turning slightly red. Metal armor clanged against the stone floor as Seabastian and three other knights stomped into the throne room. The captain stopped a meter from the feasting team and stood at attention.
"Queen Becky Blueshift,"
he said formally.
"I have received word that our merchants arrived at your ship with the barrels of oil as you ordered. They tell me your vessel spoke to them in a woman's voice, just as Lord Nobel said it would, and that a hose of some sort descended and seemingly drank all the fuel. Your vessel sent back a message with the traders that you have enough energy to return to underspace. Is that correct?"
"Yes, and thank you, Captain," Becky said. "Where is Monarch? Sebastian nodded toward a staircase on the far side of the hall.
"In the dungeons with the pirates, as you ordered. He has not stopped crying since we found him attempting to steal a lizard mount from a small boy after the battle. I believe I am starting to understand why you felt he was not a proper ruler for our people."
"No, he wasn't," Edison agreed. "Well, if the Lovelace is ready," Becky said, "we should ride over and take off. We need to head back to the fleet and get our ship repaired before we can set out on the next part of our search." One of the knights stepped forward and bowed his head.
"But you can't leave us, oh my gracious, powerful, stupendous queen. We are defenseless without you."
"Here we go," Becky thought. "I'm not your mom. I didn't want to stay here and take care of you." Suddenly, wait, hold on a second. Yeah, there we go. Just want to make sure I was on the right page. You know how that goes. Suddenly, an idea occurred to her that might solve their problems and allow Edison to leave without feeling they'd abandoned the population. Chair legs scraping against the floor as Becky stood, chair legs scraped against the floor as Becky stood and faced Sebastian. "Captain, your people need an example of courage and good leadership, just like I had growing up." "Yeah, 'cause you're so adult," Ben interrupted. Becky tried not to roll her eyes, but failed. "Anyway, I think you can be that example, Sebastian."
"What are you saying, my queen?"
the bearded captain asked. She turned toward Edison and pointed to a butcher knife sticking out of the roasted lizard carcass. "Hand me that knife, Edison." "Okay," he replied with a confused look. The knife came free easily, and he handed it to his friend. Placing the blade against the symbol of the earth and its rings on her chest, Becky cut the Nobel Heroic Commission logo from the tightly woven fabric. I want you to have this, she said, holding the symbol out for Sebastian to take. It represents what my parents and mentor always fight for. Wear this and remember justice, fairness, friendship, and curiosity. Lead your people to greatness, not laziness and self-interest. Teach them to serve each other instead of thinking only about their own needs. Life here will be better that way, trust me. I guess what I mean to say is this. I renounce my throne, and thereby name you ruler of whatever this planet is actually called.
Azure Bell,
Sebastian said. He took the symbol from her hand and held it against his heart.
if it is truly your wish to leave us, Becky Blueshift, then I will honor your request and serve this people with utmost fidelity.
Ben tossed a gnawed bone onto his plate and burped. And stop being afraid of triglydoors. They're not scary. At all, Edison added, standing up and stretching his back.
I will do my best,
Sebastian agreed, as his face pinched together like a nervous animal. A clap filled the hall as Becky smacked her hands together as if to punctuate the moment. Now that's all done. Edison, I think we should disable the weapons on the Queen Baba Yagal, Edison said. Whatever. We disable the weapons so Nostrellas can't do any damage here in case they escape from the dungeons. And once we're back with the fleet, we'll have Governor Peppercorn send a law enforcement brigade to take them into custody. How does that sound? What about the other 2 ships that were with Nostrellas? Edison asked. I'm surprised they haven't landed yet to help their friends. Becky shrugged. Who knows, honestly? Maybe they realized their captain had been captured and ran away. They're all a bunch of chickens in any case. Captain, make sure those pirates are kept in the dungeons until a ship arrives to take them away.
We will do as you command, Queen.
Sebastian paused.
I mean, friend, Becky Blueshift. May we ride together to your ship to say farewell?
Ben jumped up, eyes wide. Are we going to get to ride on some of those lizard horses? Are we?
Of course, young Ben Blueshift.
Sebastian smiled. With that, the group left the castle and mounted their lizards for the ride back to the Loveless. Becky had ridden horses before, as well as centaurian steeds from the moon of Peloponnesus, but the smell of these particular mounts made her stomach curl. Luckily, the lizards moved smoothly, without much jostling, which she appreciated. After a quick stop at Nostrellas' ship for Edison to disable the front cannons, they set off on the same trail they had marched the day before. High desert landscapes blew by quickly, cliffs, pine trees, and epic red bluffs dominating the environment. Now as she was leaving, Becky finally noticed how pleasant the planet seemed with its vibrant colors, pleasant temperatures, and smells of conifers. Azure Bell felt practically inviting and friendly, almost the opposite of how it seemed when they'd first crashed. Upon arriving at the Loveless, Becky noticed much of the damage had been repaired by the nanite renovator programs, but the ship still looked worse for wear. Cracks ran along the hull, dents and burn marks evidencing the crash. Dirt covered the once pale white surface, reminding Becky of Ben's soot-covered cheeks after a day working with explosive resins. Hopefully Nitro and Nyla will forgive me for the damage, Becky thought. Mom won't be happy, I know that. They climbed up the ramp to the service bay and turned to see Captain Sebastian and a dozen of his knights standing at attention. Sebastian now wore the symbol of Earth and its rings on his chest armor next to the engraven images of fishes. A fish. Fish.
Farewell, Becky and Ben Blueshift and Edison Nobel.
The captain waved as the Loveless began to pull up from the crater it had created during the crash.
Return to us once your noble quest is finished, and we will celebrate your victory with libations and revelry. We will remember justice, fairness, friendship, and curiosity. Good journey to you!
Bye, Ben shouted back. Bye, Captain, Becky waved. Be courageous. Like Johnny Dakota, Edison yelled.
Like the great Johnny Dakota,
Sebastian agreed. The bay doors closed. A vibration ran along the floor as precursor to their takeoff. The ship rocked back and forth for a moment before thrusters sent a powerful shockwave through the vessel. Becky breathed deep, smelling the sanitary air with its mixture of plastic resin and artificial pine fragrance. Smells like home, she said, voice returning to its normal pitch. I'm going to miss sounding like a chipmunk, Ben pouted. Edison led them back to the command center. Each hallway and door they passed made Becky happy to be home. She wanted to sleep for a week and forget about finding the next element, at least for a few days. Welcome back, Becky Blueshift, Edison Nobel, and Benjamin Blueshift, Ada's voice chirped happily as they entered the bridge. I have run a complete diagnostic since our impact with the surface. Would you like a briefing on my report? Pulling the glowing crystal necklace from her belt, Becky waved it over her head. Let's get this in the stasis field with the cataclastic projector and other elements first. Then, give us a little while to rest before we have a meeting or whatever this is going to be. Understood, Becky Blueshift, Ada said. What are our bearings, Ada? Edison asked, taking his seat in the captain's chair as usual. We are exiting the dope planet's atmosphere, traveling at 154% escape velocity, Ada answered. Our fuel reserves are at 15%. Would you like to hear my briefing report now? No, Becky shouted while rubbing her eyes. She plopped down in one of the deck chairs and stretched her neck. And the planet has a name. Update the registry with this dope planet that it is called Azure Bell by the people who live there. Make sure it gets listed in all the Cerebral Net's databases. Affirmative, Becky Blueshift. Edison took the crystal element from Becky's hand and placed it in the stasis field with the other items. The glowing gemstone flickered with the promise of success in their continued search. A smile spread across Becky's face, despite the odds. They had accomplished more than Governor Peppercorn or anyone else in the fleet thought possible. The Nobels and Blueshifts. Nothing could stop them when they worked together. It was true of their parents, and now she, Edison, and Ben were proving it true as younger versions of the famous adventurers. Darkness filled Becky's field of vision as she closed her eyes. Even here, in an uncomfortable bridge chair, she could easily fall asleep. Her room and bed were only one deck down, but that journey seemed far too much of an effort to undertake. Maybe she would relax here for a bit and not worry about a thing. An alarm echoed in her ears, and for a moment she thought it might be a dream. Unfortunately, the loud beeping yanked Becky right back to reality. Ada, what's going on? Edison asked. As if in response to his question, the ship rocked to the left violently and shook like a collapsing building. 2 ships are approaching on the X-axis and are firing concussion missiles, Ada answered in her cheerful voice. What? Becky yelled, jumping from her seat. Why didn't you tell us there were ships in the vicinity when we left the atmosphere? Again, the ship rumbled from a nearby detonation. Our long-range scanners were down and non-responsive. Our long-range scanners are down and non-responsive since our crash. I am unable to detect vessels at a distance more than 4 kilometers. Why didn't you tell us this before? Edison asked. It was a part of my briefing report, Ada said. You twice requested not to hear it. Oh, you've got to be kidding me, Becky yelled as another blast rocked the ship. I am always honest with my assessments, Ada informed. Edison pressed a button on his armrest and 2 holographic displays appeared in front of him. 2 ships came into view, spikes and harpoon guns prominent on their hulls. What ships are they? The vessel appeared to be 2 of the same pirate cruisers we encountered on Lingua and allowed to travel with us through underspace. Evasive maneuvers, Becky ordered, cutting off the computer's report. It's the other 2 of Nostrellis' ship. They must have been waiting for us. Ben ran to Becky's side and grabbed her arm. We need to blow them up. I'm getting a broadcast signal, Edison said. They're trying to communicate with us. Static disrupted Edison's holo screen as the image of a face appeared. Instead of Nostrellis, a human head took shape, complete with several piercings along the nose and lips. A tattoo of a fish skeleton dominated his forehead. Where's our captain? The pirate bellowed. We ain't heard from him since we went planet-side. What you done with him? He's fine, Becky informed as the Loveless continued to vibrate. Then where is he? Becky began. Where's the captain? I'll blow you out of orbit if you don't tell me. Becky ran to Edison and pressed the communication button on his armrest. The hologram disappeared and cut off the communication. Drop us into underspace now and take us back to the fleet, she ordered. Setting our course, Edison said. Unable to comply, Ada informed. What do you mean unable to comply? Becky asked. I am unable to comply. A break in the fuel lines was not discovered until isotope fuel once again began flowing through the particle drives. Nanites are currently fixing the problem, but it will be approximately 25 minutes before underspace travel will be possible. 25 minutes, Becky said. We'll be space dust in 25 minutes. Why didn't you tell us this when we got on board? Again, this information was a part of my briefing report. Becky threw her hands in the air. Come on! What do we do? Ben asked as another blast jolted them to the left. Edison, we need ideas, Becky said, holding tight to the chair to keep from falling over. What have you got off the top of your head? Edison began. You're always the one with plans when we're about to get killed. I strategize better with a little bit of advanced warning. Well, I don't know what to do, Becky admitted. For the first time since they'd set off from Alpha Centauri and left the fleet behind, Becky was completely lost. Every other situation they'd encountered, she felt at least some level of control. Now suddenly there was nothing she could do. Failure seemed inevitable. The pirates would destroy them unless Edison had any ideas. Her friend stared forward, eyes wide behind his visor. Okay. What would Johnny Dakota do? Ben asked. He picked the paperback off the floor and tossed it onto Edison's lap. The book landed with the cover up, showing the unicorn with its cowboy rider and his samurai sword. What would Johnny Dakota do? Edison repeated. His eyes tightened to slits as determination seemed to harden his face. Buckle up, he informed. What are you going to do? Becky asked. Buckle up, he repeated. I'll buy us some time. What are you going to do? Becky asked again as she took her seat in one of the cockpit chairs and began to fasten her belt. We're about to fly into the sun, Edison said as he typed furiously on his armrest keypad. We're doing what now? Ben questioned. Edison smiled. We're about to fly into the sun. Get ready. And that is the end of episode 14 of the Intergalactic Audacity of Becky. Blueshift. Tomorrow, we will read episode 15, Too Close to the Sun. If you want to get a copy of the book, the paperback or ebook, it is available at stephenhuman.com. Feel free to check it out. Read it with your kids and have fun. Otherwise, I will see you tomorrow for story time.